Welcome to Not Your Average Counsellor, the space where we tackle the unfiltered, often messy realities of love, relationships, and human connection. I'm V Vinci, and I am not your run-of-the-mill counsellor. With over a decade of experience working with clients and my own lived experiences to draw from, I help people all their hidden parts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because only when we face our truth can we step into our most authentic selves. This series, Messy Truths, is where we dive headfirst into the things we're all thinking, but nobody's brave enough to say out loud. You know, those 2 a.m. thoughts that make you question everything about your relationship, your choices, your sanity. We're breaking down the tough questions people are often afraid to ask. The ones that make you squirm, laugh nervously, and then immediately text your friend saying, "Oh my God, did you hear that episode?" We'll explore the emotional, psychological, and social dynamics at play. Have you ever wondered if it's manipulative to use your partner's insecurities to win arguments? Or questioned whether you should stay with someone who refuses to work on their mental health? If you've ever found yourself thinking, is it selfish to not want children when my partner desperately does? Or should I fake orgasms to protect my partner's feelings? You're not alone, and you're definitely in the right place. No sugarcoating, no cliches, just honest conversations about the messy, complicated, sometimes hilarious reality of being human in relationships. This is where your inside thoughts finally get their moment in the spotlight. Let's get uncomfortable together. Welcome back to Not Your Average Counsellor. I am V Vinci, relationship and family therapist and founder of Headquarters Counselling Services. So, today we are talking about something that shows up in relationships quietly. It doesn't arrive with alarms or dramatic moments. It doesn't look like control in the beginning. In fact, it often looks like care. It looks like responsibility, and it even looks like love. The question we're exploring is this: when does helping your partner cross the line into controlling their life? Most people don't realise they're doing it. Most people don't intend to do it, and yet the impact can be just as damaging as neglect because it slowly erodes the autonomy of a person, the confidence, and, more importantly for me as a therapist, what we term emotional safety. Helping is great. Helping is beautiful. Helping is loving. Helping is part of a partnership. But helping can also become intrusive, suffocating, or disempowering when it's driven by fear, anxiety, or a need to control rather than genuine support. So let's slow this down and really look at what's happening underneath. Healthy support sounds like, I'm here if you need me. What do you think is right for you? Do you want help? Or do you just want me to listen? There's space in those sentences. There's respect, there's curiosity even, and that's partnership. Controlling sounds like this. Just do this, it's easier. You should listen to me. I know what's best for you. Those sentences are tighter. They are more directive and they can assume authority. And ultimately, they give the assumption that you know better than the person whose life you're trying to manage. And here's the uncomfortable question that sits underneath all of this. Are you actually helping them, or are you just trying to manage your own anxiety? Because sometimes the urge to fix or guide or take over has nothing to do with the other person's needs and everything to do with our own discomfort, with our own uncertainty or chaos or things not being done the, open quote, unquote, right way. Now, let's talk about where overhelping comes from because this is where people start to recognize themselves. So for many people, overhelping comes, honestly, straight from fear. Fear that if your partner doesn't do it your way, something will go wrong. Fear that the other person will make a mistake. Fear that you'll have to deal with the fallout. Fear that the relationship will be affected. And fear that you'll lose control. Fear makes us tighten our grip. It makes us step in and take over. Another source is history. Maybe you grew up as the caretaker. Maybe you were the one responsible in your family, or you were the child who had to hold everything together. Helping became your identity, and stepping back feels like abandonment or irresponsibility. If you were raised to believe that your worth comes from being useful, helpful, or competent, then watching someone you love struggle can feel unbearable. Your nervous system goes into a fix-it mode before you even realize what's happening. And then that's the control. It's not the malicious kind, but the protective kind. The kind that says, if I can manage this, I don't have to feel vulnerable. Or the kind that says, if I take over, I won't have to sit with uncertainty. And the big one that I get, if I organise everything, then nothing will fall apart. And if I'm honest, I absolutely can fall into that at different times. And if you know me personally, some of you might know me personally, you will know that when my son was ill, holy shit, man, I was the organisation queen. I can still do some of that. The difference for me is that I know that if I still will do, if I organise everything, nothing will fall apart. It's not for anybody but me. That's always the funny thing that people go. They think, oh, you do this all for your kids or for your husband or for your family. It's so lovely. And I think, man, if you only knew, it's not that I really don't give a shit. It's that the only reason I do this is so that my life is easier. And, that's okay. But if, as a part of that, it forces somebody else to conform, that's not going to work. I do a series of things in my home to make my life easier. I don't force people to go into that. If you're home for dinner, you're home for dinner. If you're not, you're not. I'm still going to cook, because that meal is, if you don't eat it, well, then I'm going to be eating it for lunch. It doesn't affect what I do. It is purely for my benefit. All right? And the fact is that these are human responses. They're understandable. We can relate to them. But when they show up in a relationship that makes people conform to what you need to feel better, then that quietly reshapes the power dynamic, and that becomes an issue. So helping turns into control in subtle ways. It looks like giving advice constantly, even when they don't ask. It looks like making decisions on their behalf to save them stress. It looks like managing their health or money or schedule without involving them. It looks like framing criticism as concern. I just want the best for you. We all know how that sounds. It's like chalk, nails on a chalkboard when it comes out without the authenticity. It can look like phrases such as, trust me, I know what you need. It can also look like rescuing them from discomfort, doing things for them before they've even had a chance to try, correcting, over-explaining, taking over tasks because it's faster if I do it. I definitely fall into that little nugget. Most people don't start with the intention to control, but the pattern becomes controlling when your partner loses space to think, to choose, and to act for themselves. And again, if I'm honest here, I don't necessarily do this with my partner. In fact, I call him out on me having to think for him. I don't want to do that shit. Where I fall into this is probably with my kids. And it's easy to frame it with, oh, because I care. But the reality is that everything I want in my relationship with my kids, I severely damage if my care and concern becomes control, especially with my daughter. And here's the thing. Even if your partner or the people that you are wanting to get close to or you're doing this with go along with it, doesn't mean they actually feel good about it. Compliance is not the same as comfort. Silence is not the same as agreement. And going along with something is not the same as feeling respected. So let's talk about what this feels like on the receiving end, because this is where the emotional impact becomes clear. When you take over, even with the best intentions, the people in your life may feel disempowered. They can often feel infantilized, so basically like children. They feel micromanaged. They can feel secondary in their own life, and they often feel obliged to comply just to keep the peace. Now, some people will do different things. Some people will withdraw. Some will rebel. Some will just shut down. Some become passive, and some become resentful. If you see yourself in any of those themes, then you need to look at, oh, hang on, am I on the receiving end or am I on the giving end? Because sometimes when you have someone who doesn't comply with you, you can do all the same things. And here's the heartbreaking part. The person doing the overhelping often has no idea that this is happening. They think they're being supportive. They think they're being responsible, and they think they're being loving. Now, I can almost see a million eye rolls in your car or wherever you're listening to me. And that probably relates exactly to the statement that I said. The person doing the overhelping often has no idea. Now, you're always going to get some people who are manipulative, but if I'm honest, a lot of the people that I have that come in who have maybe come in as a complaint of somebody else telling them that they're doing this, they are often confused. They don't necessarily see it. And it needs to be broken down and stated like this because, again, we don't teach this shit in schools. People don't know. And it's automatic. And especially if you have come from a dynamic in your home where, like I said earlier, you were praised for the doing, which is what a lot of our families used to, that was what gave you value, then it's something that they, it's second nature for them. The person on the receiving end feels smaller and less capable and less trusted and ultimately less equal. And that's why the dynamic becomes so sticky. Humans need autonomy. They need to know that they can have a say in their own life, that they are trusted, that what they do in their life is okay. And they will need to feel capable. And the thing is that when we do all those things, when we allow a person to have a say in their life, they feel trusted and they feel capable. When that's taken away, even gently, it creates emotional distance, which is exactly the opposite of what most helpers come in and tell me that they're trying to achieve. So let's talk about intent versus effect. You might be acting out of care or love or worry or habit, blah, blah. It doesn't mean it feels like care to the person on the receiving end. Intent matters, but it's impact that shapes the relationship. If your partner feels controlled or smothered or managed, then the dynamic needs attention, regardless of how pure your intention might be. Some behaviours sound loving on the surface. I'm just trying to protect you. If I don't step in, you'll struggle. But underneath it is generally all about your own fear, anxiety, or need for everything to be certain. Love supports, control restricts, and sometimes the two can get very tangled. This is something that can be incredibly hard to see in yourself. No one likes to think of themselves as controlling, especially when they've spent their life being the responsible one or the helper or the organiser or the one who just keeps shit together. Overhelpers often say things like, I'm just trying to help. I don't understand why they're upset. Or this little nugget, they'd be worse off without me. I mean, I can just imagine everyone wanting to slap that person in the face. But those beliefs, they come from blind spots, not bad character. But the reality is that blind spots still have consequences. And the kicker? Overhelping often feels like love to the person doing it, but feels like control to the person receiving it. This mismatch creates confusion, conflict, and emotional distance. So here are some grounding questions for you to check in with yourself. You gotta ask yourself, am I respecting the other person's right to make their own mistakes? Do I get anxious when things aren't done my way? Does my help come with expectations, guilt, or strings attached? And do I feel calmer when I take over? And you know what? One of the big ones, do I believe that I know better than they do about their own life? And if you answered yes to any of those questions, you need to stop and reflect a little. Helping is healthy. Taking over is not. So let's talk about red flags and green flags. A red flag is when you feel frustrated or anxious when the other person doesn't take your advice and you push harder. Big old red flag. The green flag is when you offer support, step back, accept their choice, even if you don't agree. Oh no, who would have thunk it? Support creates room for autonomy. Control crowds it out. Healthy relationships aren't independent or dependent. They're what we call interdependent. That means that both people can ask for help, that both people can hold their own shape, that support is offered, not forced, and that decisions are made together, not managed by one person. Everyone will have things in their life that they do better in a partnership. I might be really good at organising certain things and my husband's really good at organising those things. The difference is we don't just take that and run with it and expect the other person to follow along. We actually have conversations. I actually had a good friend of mine recently, and if she's listening, she'll know who I'm talking about. Travel with us for the first time, and she said something really interesting. She said, you guys talk a lot of details, discuss a lot of details when you're talking to each other. And I said, oh, what do you mean? She said, well, there's lots of, well, we're doing this, what are you doing? There's lots of talk about the how, whys, and wheres. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, but that's probably the difference in everyone getting a say in what they need. And that doesn't require a lot more words. It does require a little bit more effort. And guess what? That's fucking communication. So I was surprised when she noticed it, and it's not something that we notice, but I think maybe when people come in looking for communication, they're looking for almost a magic wand. But the reality is that communication is using more words in a way that opens a conversation rather than just tell someone to do shit. A simple shift creates a huge difference. How can I support you instead of here's what you should do is a totally different question. Sometimes real love is about stepping back, not stepping in. So helping your partner doesn't, or your kids, I'm not going to throw just partner in here. Helping somebody in your life doesn't mean directing their life or taking over their choices. It means showing up, offering support, and trusting them to steer their own path, even if it's not the path you'd take. I find this the most difficult probably at my age group with kids, because it's easy for us to sit there on our high and mighty thrones going, oh, but we're just worried for them. But you know what? They are individuals and they have their own lives. And as a parent, I often say to my kids, I sometimes push you because my role as a parent means that I need to guide you. And I do it so that I don't have any regrets, not necessarily that you have to do it. I have to offer my opinion, and I want the space for you to know that you can choose differently. But if you're asking me to say nothing, I couldn't do that as a parent because I would live with the regret. So I will often step in and go, listen, this is my opinion, and blah, 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 blah. Now, some people will take that as too much, and some people will go, yeah, that's fine. And when I say people, it's the person on the other end. Adapting for those people is what you probably need to be aware of. And again, guess what? It uses more fucking words, because I might have to say to my daughter more than my son, hun, I am not trying to force this. This is actually a conversation. I just need my opinion to be put out, but it is totally up to you what you do with it. You can reject it or accept it. I'm okay with that. So, that's the difference. It just means showing up and offering support and trusting them to steer their own path in a way that maybe you wouldn't. When you can let go of managing and lean into supporting, the relationship does become much stronger and more equal and far more connected. And that's my goal for my work and this podcast. Again, thank you for tuning in today. And I mentioned earlier this year, I want you to be a part of the conversation. Get on my socials, get in the DMs, forward this out. I want more people with more ears on this year. See you next time. One of my big goals for this year is to get this podcast into the ears of more people who genuinely need it. So if this episode has made you think, feel, or see things a little differently, I need to ask you a favour. Follow it, rate it, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need it too. The more you pay it forward, the more I get to keep doing what I do and hopefully help a few more people along the way. And don't stop there. Be sure to tag me at @VVincieTherapist so that I can see and connect with you. I love hearing your thoughts and takeaways, so my inbox is always open. DM me anytime. Thanks again for listening. I'll catch you next time.